everybody, and welcome back. It's good to see you again, even though I'm not looking at you. But this is going to be a fun course. This is the other half to new media marketing. So what happened in new media marketing was you were learning how to use an influencer strategy in order to build your business. What's that exactly? That's using other people, right? You were using new media influencers or new media journalists as influencers, or you were using brand ambassadors. Well, this month we expand to the broader topic of strategic internet public relations. Public relations, by definition, is earned media, meaning that we have other people telling our story. So we're going to learn a lot this week or this month, and I want to give you an overview of the month, and then I'll come back in another video and give you an overview of the week one assignment and the tools I think that you need to know about in order to get week one done. But this is a fun month because public relations is not something that we normally think about, but it takes the concepts that we master in new media and really takes them to a new level. So let's take a look at what we're talking about. Week one, we're going to do strategic context and monitoring. Now, in a manner of speaking, you started this back in new media marketing when you were doing research trying to understand who your persona was and what your business goals were. And probably each month that's passed, you've refined that a little bit more and more so that you really have the strategic context down, even though you may not have referred to it as that. We're talking about where your business fits in the overall business environment and explaining all those components. Then in week two, we develop a newsworthy event. Now, a newsworthy event, what is that? It's something that somebody else is willing to tell the story about, hopefully without pay. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't cost us anything. Obviously, we're going to have to pay some form in terms of creating the newsworthy event. We're going to be paying in how we get it distributed and so forth. But we're not going to have to pay to have somebody tell the story. And hence, that's something I want to point out this week, that when we create a press release, we're not writing advertisement. We're writing information to get somebody else excited about telling our story about the newsworthy event. So I actually have a trick question in the week two assignment, which is, what is the goal of the newsworthy, or what is the goal of the press release? And the answer is to get somebody else to tell the story about X. So make sure that an X being your newsworthy event. You will explore a little bit about the distribution strategy in week two, but you're really going to explore it and develop a distribution strategy plan in week three. Now, one of the things we'll talk about in week one is the similarities between marketing and PR. And the press release or the newsworthy event is the equivalent to a creative in marketing, meaning that the creative is what drives advertising. Well, the newsworthy event is what drives public relations. And just like you can have a number of sub-campaigns that fall off of a creative, so you may have a creative that you use to run a television commercial. You may have a variation of that runs on the web. You may have another variation that runs on the web but is actually running on either one of the social media channels, Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter. And all of them have a little bit different variance to it because, as we've discussed, each channel has its own unique characteristics. And that's what we talk about when we talk about the distribution strategy. How are you going to take that newsworthy event and create, how you're going to get the word out about it, and what are you going to do with it in terms of possibly sub-stories or sub-newsworthy events in these various media. Now, the interesting thing is you're wearing the hat of a PR person when you're creating the newsworthy event, but guess what? When you're controlling your own media, so your website, your blog, your press room on your website, you are actually the writer, so you become a new media journalist. That's what we talk about when we talk about content marketing. The newsworthy event becomes content for your content marketing. All right. And then finally, in week 4, we do a crisis case study. Now, the crisis case study does not have to be with your case study company. For example, Peloton had a situation not too long ago, a couple weeks back, that they had real issues because they had initially refused to recall one of their bikes, and they had some major issues and ultimately ended up having to do a recall. So that's just one example. You can go out and pick any company that's had an actual crisis, and we're going to have you write about it in a case study fashion. Now, what's a case study fashion? Well, you have some of the details are provided in the media information, and possibly, if I were writing the case study, I might even make up some information to give you, but I'm never going to give you everything you need because it's your job to play all that back. In other words, what would you do if you were the president? What would you do if you were the CEO or the chief marketing officer? And how would you handle this crisis? By the way, that's very similar to what you're doing with your regular case study company. If you just tell us everything that the case study company is doing, I guarantee you there's going to be things that they do that are wrong or they're not doing at all. Your case study company is nothing more than a framework, and you have complete poetic license to say, hey, I'm the chief executive officer, I'm the chief marketing officer, and I'm the marketing manager all rolled into one, and this is what we're going to do. So again, your case study companies, whether it's the one that's carrying you through the degree or the one that you're going to use for the week 4 project, all they are frameworks and providing some basic structure to the framework that you can then work with. All right, so that's your month at a glance, week 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let me tell you, in week 2, I give you a bonus discussion question, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later when I actually get into the week 1. But one thing that you need to know, that bonus, you have to decide to do it in week 2 or you don't do it at all. You can't come to me at the end of the month and realize you're a few points away from a B or you're a few points away from an A and you want the 5 points. So can you do the case study? Can you do the bonus question? No. That has to be done in week 2. And the reason for that is because there's great content in that discussion question that you could be using throughout the remainder of your week 3 and week 4 materials. So I don't want you to miss out on that information. So that's why it's only a week 2 item. All right, everybody. That's all I got for you in this video, and I'll have more in the next. It's an exciting month. I think you're going to have fun. One thing about your crisis case study, I want you to focus on brands, but we live in a postmodern world, which is something that you're going to see through the reading, and I'll ask you a bunch of questions about what postmodernism is and so forth. We're living in a postmodern world, and that means that philosophy and hence politics can interfere with a brand's performance. When you take a look at a lot of the PR crises that have developed with regard to brands over the last several years, it's because they haven't navigated effectively their political landscape, the politically correct landscape. Let me put it that way. So that may come into play, and if that does, then it's still okay. You're still focused on brands. I don't want you to be talking about politics in general, or I don't want you talking about political candidates in general. We all know that marketing and PR are a big part of those two domains, but not for purposes of this exercise. Stay focused on the brand, and if the postmodern world is impacting that brand, in other words, political correctness, that's okay to talk about and to deal with in your case study company. If you have any questions or you're not sure and you want to talk to me, just send me a text and we'll set up a time to talk, probably right away. All right. Again, this is Dr. John. My number is 407-267-8600. And please text me as my preferred way for you to get in touch with me. And why? Because it pops up on my phone, I see it right away, and I try to get back to you right away. If you contact me through FSO, I usually only see that when I'm going in to work on your class's submissions on any given day. So, I may do your discussion on one day, I may do your assignment on another day, and if that's the case and you're in between or vice versa, I may end up missing you for a couple of days. The text is the best way to go. So 407-267-8600, that's my phone, and you'll get in touch with me. Have a great month. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see what you all produce this month.